Oh, it's so good. Loki is the third show produced by Marvel, strictly to tie into the MCU, that's been released actually this year, following WandaVision and The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and is easily the best of those three. Following the events of Avengers Endgame, Loki is quickly captured by the Time Variance Authority, the TVA, when he disrupts the set timeline. He soon learns that the ones who dictate time don't think that he has a place in reality, and he'll do whatever he can to save himself. So he's captured by the TVA and realizes that he has no way of escaping them, so he wants to kind of make a deal with them. So he's going to help them solve, basically, crimes for other variants. And variants are characters or people or whatever that have disrupted the set timeline and have to be eliminated because that's not what's supposed to happen in the set timeline. So the show is fairly high concept because it is dealing with time travel and moving through space and how time actually works for people and everything like that. And in my opinion, it is the first Marvel show out of these three that have been produced by Disney Plus that has delivered on its concept. I really like this show. I think generally it's just a blast to watch. Pretty much every aspect of it was outstanding. I really love the technical side of it. The directing by Kate Herron was spectacular. She did the entire show. It wasn't mixed up with different directors or anything, kind of like The Mandalorian does or whatever. But she directs the entire miniseries, and she does a great job. There's a lot of very fun things that she does with her direction, and then the cinematography too is also a lot of fun. There's a lot of very interesting dynamic camera movements in the show, and while style and everything, like I've said before, doesn't make something good, it is also nice to have some style in it to give it some type note that it is something different. And the cinematography in the show is very colorful. I love the color palette that they used for this show. It's very interesting to look at. It pops off the screen. I just really like that aspect of the show. I didn't really like the color palette they used for The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so I really liked what they did with this one. And then also, with the technical aspects of this show, the production design, the costume design is also fantastic. A lot of the sets are very interesting to look at. The costume designs are very creative. There's some very simple stuff that they do, like with Owen Wilson's character, Mobius. His character is wearing a suit, just a traditional suit, but if you look at it, the lapel is kind of reversed where it's not an actual lapel, but it still looks like one. And there's just fun little things that they do with, like, the TVA especially, that is just slightly off, but it has its own kind of sci-fi fantasy style, which I really liked. And the same goes for the production design. Like I said, they take their opportunity to have characters that can travel through time and space and actually go to very interesting looking locations, which was really cool to see. And then a big mention, of course, has to go to Natalie Holt, the composer for the show, for the score. The score is incredible. It might be my favorite score for any of the MCU projects so far. Every aspect of it does so well in kind of pulling you into this world, this kind of sci-fi, this science fiction world. For me, it is my favorite score that I've heard for anything made for the MCU so far. I really like the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtracks, but of course those are the soundtracks. Those are songs that have already been made and everything. That's a lot of fun. I think that this is the best score that's been produced for any of the MCU projects. I really enjoyed a lot about the technical aspects of this show. It was a lot of fun to watch. But to get into the actual story itself, of course, it takes place after Avengers Endgame, when Loki steals the Tesseract, when the characters go back to the time of the first Avengers movie, when they capture Loki after they beat him in New York. So the show technically takes place after the attack on New York in 2012. And then after that, because it's a show that messes with time, you don't really know where it ends up by the end of it. So it's kind of an interesting thing for it to do, where it kind of has the freedom to do what it wants in the show. Of course, since they have now backtracked Loki to be a variant from his 2012 self, that is, of course, walking back some of the character development he has had in the other movies. And even though they backtracked that aspect, that part of him, they do a great job of actually improving his character story. This is definitely the deepest dive into Loki as a character, which is kind of expected since it is his own show. But like Tom Hiddleston as Loki, this is definitely the best outing he's had as the character. He was able to show a lot of his emotional range as Loki, and just kind of all of the aspects of Loki and the way that makes him tick, what motivates him and everything. I really liked the character work of this show especially. And that's another thing to mention, is that every actor and character that's in this show is utilized in a useful way, where it's not just like a cameo or a small role that doesn't really have any impact on the show or the story. Everybody's fantastic in the show. Owen Wilson is amazing throughout the entire show. It's a lot of fun to see him in this. He is kind of playing a similar role to previous Owen Wilson roles, but it's kind of also expected. But he also delivers a pretty nuanced performance as this character Mobius, who is in charge of Loki at the TVA. And then I'm going to give a little bit of spoilers up to like episode 2, so if you don't want any spoilers at all, I guess go ahead and turn the video off. But Loki is helping the TVA capture another variant of himself, who is Lady Loki in this show, the female version of Loki, and her name in this show is Sylvie, and she's played by Sophia Di Martino. All of these actors, but especially Tom Hiddleston and Sophia Di Martino, have incredible chemistry together. They play off of each other so well and so believably that it brings you into caring for these characters almost automatically, which I thought was really impressive in the writing and the acting. But like I said, even the smaller character roles, Richard E. Grant is in the show, and he's really only in one episode, but his character is basically given a full satisfying arc for the episode that he is in, and he gives a good performance, which is really impressive to do, and they do that with a couple other characters too. And I do apologize, I forget her name wrong. Gugu Mbatha Raw, which I don't know if I got the name right or not. I do apologize if I did. And then Wunmi Masaku were also very good in this show. They were characters part of the TVA who were very entertaining to watch. Their characters also got a great amount of character development in the screen time that they had, which is cool to see. But another part of the show that I really liked was the structure. This is only 6 episodes, but the pacing and the structure of the show is done so well that it keeps you interested in each episode, and the way it builds off of the last one, especially with something like episode 4, which is easily my favorite, because there are so many twists and turns throughout this show, and there's something kind of nefarious under the appearance of the TVA in general, that there's a mystery aspect to it. Sylvie wants to destroy the TVA, and you're kind of wondering why and everything, and it slowly peels back these layers of this mystery, and that's done really well. And probably the only critique I really have is that I do wish that maybe there could be another episode right in the middle that draws out that mystery a little bit longer, because I did feel like one aspect of it did kind of move a little too quickly to the conclusion for certain questions in the show. But honestly, I think the show was so well paced that that critique might not even have any real substance to it, because I was so entertained by the show. I really liked the show. I loved the ending for the show, which has been my biggest problem with WandaVision and The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. because I think the story for Falcon and the Winter Soldier kind of fell apart by the end. WandaVision, I had some problems with what they were doing with Wanda by the end of it, and I think this had the most satisfying and believable ending. There's a certain character that they bring in to the show that I was so happy to see, and I can't say the character or the actor's name because he's already been announced as that character, and I love that actor. I'm really excited to see him in more projects. And then the character is a certain character that likes to mess with time, so it makes sense that he is in this show too. I love that aspect of it. I really, really enjoyed the way this show played out the entire time. I really don't have anything bad to say about this show. I do think it's the best produced show that Marvel has ever made. That's including Disney Plus and Netflix and all the older Marvel shows, like the animated shows and everything like that. I think it's probably the best thing that Disney Plus has put out so far. I'm super excited for the second season. I really loved Loki, and I'm going to be rating it a 9.5 out of 10. And it is fun because today is actually my birthday. So it was cool to have the ending of Loki be the day before my birthday and be able to talk about it on my birthday because I enjoyed this show so much. So it's kind of a little birthday present to myself to be able to talk about it. But like I said, what were you guys' thoughts on it? I will be back with a special video next week.